Let's start with blockchain development. Blockchain technology has revolutionized the way we think about trust, decentralization, and transparency. Blockchain development is the area of software development which makes use of blockchain technology and usually involves creating decentralized applications or dApps that can operate on a distributed network. This is without relying on a central authority. So Web3 development focuses on building dApps that can operate on this decentralized web, also known as Web3. Web3 is a decentralized version of the internet that is built on blockchain technology and is often described as the internet of ownership because it allows users to own and control their own data and assets. Web3 is still in its early stages of development, but it has the potential to make great changes in the way we interact with the internet. Let's first start with the Web3 development process. The Web3 development process involves several phases, including design, development, testing, and deployment. These are like the main phases in every development process. In the design phase, you will design the architecture, the user interface of your application, but you will also design all the tokenomics of your project. You will design incentive mechanisms. You can, in case of NFTs, you will probably need to design the art itself. There is also the design of the web page, the design of the branding of your project. Depending on how good your design is how much probabilities you have of needing to make changes in the future, or how much probabilities you have of encountering challenges that you haven't seen before. After you have a complete design, the next step is the development itself. So you will basically use programming languages like Solidity, for example, for the smart contract part, or also HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, in order to create the web applications. In this development phase, there is also another important factor, which is documentation. It's very important to keep a good documentation during this development phase, as well, of course, during the design and testing and deployment, but especially during development, because there is high chances you will need to share the code with other developers and build with the team. And also, it is important to be able to document how to use your applications so users can adopt it in an easier way. So once you have developed your application, the next phase is testing, which is very, very important because it's highly related to security. So testing in the case of smart contract development has higher importance than in non-Web3 applications, because once you develop and deploy a smart contract, it's not easy to make changes to the application. If you want to do changes, you might end up needing to deploy a new contract, make a lot of changes in order to be able to fix a bug, for example. So testing is very, very important, and you might consider deploying on a testnet first, running beta testing with your users, or also doing bug bounties. And of course, everything which is related to automated testing, which is unit testing, integration test, end-to-end tests. So testing is a key element in the development process, and you must never forget this phase, and it's never enough tests. After you have finished the testing and you are comfortable on how it works, the next step is deploying. And normally you deploy on testnet first, and then you deploy on mainnet. And the importance here in deployment is scalability, like preparing your infrastructure and your application to be able to support a large number of users with time. And after all this, of course, you need to keep on continuously improving your application. You will always find bugs and improvement opportunities in which you will need to work on. This is basically the development process. I will now move into the tech stack. So we will discuss about some programming languages, frameworks, libraries that should be learned to become a Web3 developer. First, starting with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are key languages for web development and are necessary to build any Web3 applications. So it's suggested that you start with the basics of HTML and CSS, then you move to JavaScript, which is a programming language that it is used to create interactive web pages and applications. There is also another options apart from JavaScript, like TypeScript and many others, but these three programming languages are the most used ones. Most applications use these three. Some of them use TypeScript, as I mentioned, but these are the most common ones. Next, we have Solidity, which is a key programming language in all of this, because it's the language you use to write smart contracts, and it's essential for building decentralized applications on Conflux. And apart from these programming languages, there is many frameworks, libraries, interfaces, and other tools that can be used and are part of this tech stack. Just to mention some of them, we have Carhat and Truffle, which are frameworks used for smart contract development. This can be used for deployment, testing, debugging, and are actually very, very useful at the moment of development. Then we have Web3.js, Ethers.js, which are examples of JavaScript libraries that are used to interact with the blockchain and with the smart contracts, and allows users to write data and read data from the blockchain, enabling that your front-end applications can have that feature. There are other options like Web3.py, which is the Python one, and other libraries that are the light version of these ones, but I would say that these two are the most known and most used ones. After that, we have React. There are many others also as well. There is Angular, there is Vue, but this is basically a library used for building user interfaces. It's commonly used in Web3 development to build front-end applications, but as I mentioned, there are many other options. And finally, this slide, I just want to mention IPFS. IPFS means Interplanetary File System, and it's a distributed file system that enables the creation of decentralized applications. So it allows developers to store and retrieve data in a distributed and decentralized manner. The most common use case for IPFS is NFTs. Normally, most NFT projects use IPFS to store the NFT files, such as the images or other kind of files, and the metadata for the NFTs. But it can be used also for hosting a frontend, for example. So learning these programming languages and frameworks are essential to build decentralized applications on Conflux and also in other blockchains, of course. Let's move to some best practices during Web3 development. First, we will talk about security, which I think is one of the most important ones. Security is crucial when it comes to blockchain development. You should always follow best practices for secure coding and contract design. If it is possible, you should always conduct security audits to identify and fix vulnerabilities. I mentioned using bug bounties to improve the security of your applications. But in Web3 development in particular, security is very, very important because normally applications handle a lot of value, let's say, and they manage users' funds. So there is not only the security of the application itself, but the security of all your development environment. And there is many considerations you can take, starting from using multi-sigs, but also considering using multi-factor authentications in your accounts, in your computer, in having good browsing habits in terms of not clicking any link. And there are many considerations at the moment of development itself of having a secure code. Let's move to usability, which is also very important for adoption. You should always design your application with the user in mind, ensuring that it's easy to use. So that's a key aspect. Scalability is also critical for dApps that are expected to handle a large number of users. You should always design your app with scalability in mind and ensure it can handle high transaction volumes. And this is something in which Conflux provides a lot of value to developers because it has a high throughput and it's highly scalable. So by using Conflux to develop your applications, you're actually leveraging the scalability of the network for your applications. Next, there is interoperability, which is fundamental if you want to communicate with other applications in the ecosystem or other blockchain networks. For example, if you want to leverage the actual ecosystem of Conflux, you want to take advantage of Swappy or Bolero or Nucleon or any other existing project in Conflux, the way to do it is first consider interoperability. You should always try to use standards like ERC20, ERC721, ERC1155 to ensure the interoperability so your tokens are compatible with Swappy and other platforms. And this is also related with security, the usage of a standard, but it's mostly focused on interoperability. And finally, documentation is crucial for the maintenance and the adoption of your application, not only to help other developers continue your work in case of an open source project, for example, but also for your users. It's very important to document and explain very carefully how your application works and how to use it. Now let's move to the roadmap. Becoming a proficient blockchain and Web3 developer takes a lot of time, dedication, willingness to learn continuously. So here is a roadmap with some of the key steps that I believe that are necessary to become a good Web3 developer. The first step is obviously learn the basics of blockchain technology. This includes understanding, for example, how ledger technology works. differences between consensus mechanisms, and the basic concepts such as transactions, accounts, addresses, blocks, hash. Next, you will need to learn some programming language, especially Solidity, if you want to develop smart contracts. And as I mentioned, some of the ones you also need to learn in order to develop front-end applications. Other things to familiarize yourself with Conflux. We already had an introduction on Conflux ecosystem, on the wallets. This is very important, not only in terms of the ecosystem, but also the infrastructure and the differentiators it has. For example, understanding the cross-space call contract, or understanding the gas sponsorship option you have on Conflux Core. Knowing all these tools and familiarizing yourself with this is also very important to make the best use of the network. Then you need to learn about the smart contract development, which is also related to learning Solidity, but it's more than that. It's more understanding like the logic of a smart contract, understanding protocols, understanding tokenomics, and it's also related to understanding which are the standards in the ecosystem and the community. Apart from learning on how to develop the smart contract, you also need to learn how to deploy them, how to test them, how to verify them, and how to interact with them. So it's more than just writing code. The other part is learning about Web3 development, which we mentioned some of the applications that are related with Web3 development, such as Truffle, Hardhat, Web3, and many other tools that exist. But this is also a fundamental part of the roadmap. And after that, we have staying up to date with industry trends. This is also very important because this technology moves very fast. There is a lot of innovation in the space, and it's always something new coming. So staying up to date with the trends and with the new tools and new innovations is very important for all of you as developers. And the next thing is writing secure code. I mentioned security as a key best practice in blockchain development, and it's important that you familiarize yourself with security vulnerabilities, for example, and how to prevent them, what are the requirements to conduct a security audit, and everything related to possible attack vectors. This is also important at the moment of writing secure code. And finally, we have collaborating with other developers. Collaboration is essential in blockchain development, and working with other developers can help you learn and grow a lot as a developer. I encourage you to participate in hackathons, to join blockchain communities, contribute to open source projects, and collaborate with other peers. And another good suggestion is to join Web3 developer communities. For example, Conflux Devs community, which we are running. But there is also another Web3 communities, like for example, Web3 University, Alchemy University, Developer DAO, Learn Web3, and many others. There is always more of these communities coming, and there is also communities dedicated to blockchain security. For example, Code for Arena, which is a recent partner that Conflux had. So if you have a project, I also encourage you to consider using Code for Arena platform for audits, for example. And yeah, that's basically it regarding the roadmap.